All right, I think this is recording. What I wanted to do today is go through the very first example of data warehousing using Microsoft Fabric. And I've completed the tutorial, and I just want to walk you guys through it and see if there's any gotchas or anything else. So the first thing the tutorial has you doing is creating this worldwide importers lakehouse. Keep in mind when you create the lakehouse, you get the semantic model with it, and you get this analytics endpoint. So if we select just the lake house itself, it's going to load, and we already have all of these tables and this facts and dimensions and this aggregate here built. And I'll talk you through how that stuff gets built in the using the tutorial. But the first thing they have you doing is creating this lake house in its raw state. You can look at the SQL Analytics endpoint, which really gives you the ability just to write straight SQL queries against any of the tables that are in the system, and also gives you some ability to do some security, some built-in roles and whatnot, so that you can securitize your solution. I don't think there were any views or any functions, or even I think there was one stored procedure as part of. Well, maybe that's not part of this demo. That's okay. We're going to go back to my workspace here and take a look at the first thing that they have you do after you create that actual lake house here is you create this data flow gen 2, which really isn't all that complicated. We'll take a quick look at it. Um, so based on the dimension customer, right, which they have you import as a CSV, you download it, you import it as a CSV, and you get this basically what think about this like an Excel worksheet, right? But the great part about the demo is that it walks you through some of the things that are happening over here in the applied steps, right? Bring in the CSV file, promote these headers across the first row that kind of give you a breakdown of what's valid, what's an error, what's empty, and then any columns that have changed where you've altered the data types or done anything different. Gives you the ability to select your destination down here or create your destination. So if you put that, this is in my workspace, the worldwide importers lakehouse, right? The dimension customer, and right, every time that it updates it, it would replace, right? And then there's a column mapping that essentially says, we're going to map these columns to these particular places. Um, so that's really the gist of the beginnings of yes, I do want to exit that, of the beginnings of that. So here's our data pipeline, which actually creates a copy of Worldwide Importer. So this is a copy data task that you have here. You can copy to Canvas. You can use the copy assistant, right? If I wanted to bring in a data flow that I'd already brought in, I could bring in that data flow that I just brought in for the CSV. That would work too. If I wanted to bring in a notebook that I'd already built, so there's a couple of notebooks that go along with this. So let's say I wanted to run one of those notebooks. I would select that notebook. I would look in my workspace, and I would see that I have the create delta tables and the transformation big business aggregates notebooks. And we'll talk about those notebooks in just a minute. Don't get too bothered by those notebooks in and of themselves, because the notebook the shells of those notebooks are downloadable. So I right clicked on that and chose delete because I didn't want to save it. And so don't get too worried about all of that. Now let's talk about this copy task. And really, this copy task goes out to a URL that they give you in the demo, right? Assets prod Microsoft.com enus worldwide importer sample dataset.zip, right? And this actually lets you get that in a binary format using the get method, right? And then the destination is my lakehouse, and the file format is binary. So it walks you through all of that, and there are no additional settings. There's nothing else to worry about. You can, of course, enable logging here. You can stage the data here. There are different options and things that you can do. If you have multiple places that you're copying from, you can add and manage the parallelism, right? Which has to do with how the things are operating across the CPUs, right? Real basic stuff, no rocket science. We're gonna get back out of here, go back out to my workspace, and so from there, after you get that stuff done and you take a look at the data that's in the warehouse that I showed you just a moment ago, and it has you running a couple of um, notebooks. So let's talk about the notebooks real quick. And these are real simple PySpark notebooks. And you see down here it says PySpark, right? If there was another, if you were using another language, you could select that language from here, or you could turn that into a markup cell. So let's say, or a markdown cell, I should say, markdown, markup, either way. So that, for example, this particular cell here is markdown, right? And they give you this as it comes out, and this is markdown notation, which is why you see pound, pound, pound Spark session configuration and not HTML. Now you could put HTML in there, but Markdown seems to be the default that people prefer to use. So really all this does is say, hey, we're setting some variables for our Spark session, right? No big deal. And then we're creating this fact sale table, right? And we're reading the fact sale from the fact sale 1 year full into Parquet format. We're creating some columns off of that inside of our data frame. Now, keep in mind that data frames inside of notebooks are in-memory representations of the data set, and you can add columns to them. You can delete columns from them. You can create new columns from them. You can create new data frames from them by selecting particular data out of certain data frames, and that's for way later down the road. We'll talk about that later. But essentially, it's overwrite. This says, hey, we're going to overwrite a Delta format, and we'll talk about Delta format just ever so briefly. Delta is built on top of the rest of the system, and it gives you ACID abilities for transactions and transactability and being able to roll back in particular time and whatnot through the Delta format. And we can talk about Delta, how it makes a copy of the table and a copy of the table every time that you make a change, so that it has the ability to go back to what you had in previous times. It's saying, hey, we're going to partition this by year or quarter. We're going to save this out to tables and the table name, which is fact sale. And in fact, and then later on, down in the same notebook, it goes out here and it says load full data. This is load full data from source. Now, def is a function uh, inside of Python, right? So you're using the PySpark SQL types, and it's importing them all. So the good news is it creates this array of full tables by their name, and it says for table in full tables. So for every table in full tables, load full data from source table, which calls this function, passes in the table name, and it says, hey, for this particular table name, we're going to go out to worldwide importers, Parquet, and full inside of our raw data warehouse. And this little piece of Python here says C for C. So um, column for column in data frame dot columns, right? Not real complicated. Column C for column in data frame dot columns. If C is not a photo, if it's not a photograph column, then we're going to select it out, right? So really, this is a filter when we look at it. So there's our raw data. There's our worldwide importers raw data, and this is the data that we downloaded in that pipeline. right? And we're looking at full, and here's our tables. So really no rocket science here going on, right? So this is fact sale for 1 full year, and that's what we picked up here, right? Fact sale for 1 full year. And then we've got fact sale, and we'll go over how all these get created as part of the next workbook or notebook, I should say. And but this just copies the data from all those tables and filters out uh, the the column that could be a photo. So really no rocket science there. Go back to my workspace and we'll take a look at this data transformation. Again, it's using PySpark. So the demo actually gives you two options. You can use approach one, which is pretty much using just straight up Python and PySpark. And the second option is you're using Spark SQL, right? So that's what you see the magic here. It says pound pound SQL. So once you see that magic, you know that that's going to be pretty much straight up a SQL statement, right? Create or replace temporary view. So no rocket science there, nothing crazy. And it creates that view, right? So a sum of the total excluding SAT tax, a sum of the tax amount, a sum of the total including tax, and a sum of the profit from the lake house, and then joins out to your dimension data, your employee data, and goes by the calendar, and then does a group by, obviously by calendar month label, uh, day, short date, year. This is exactly how the notebook comes as it comes out straight uh, from straight from Microsoft from the downloads that are available as part of the demo. And then it does an overwrite of the aggregate sale by data and employee. So if we look at that, that's this table that we have here. So what I did is, in a little addition to this, is I wrote another piece of PySpark, and this I and in it I used some part Spark SQL, which looks just like normal SQL, right? Select all from worldwide importers Lakehouse aggregate sales by city, and I've limited it to the top 1,000. And because I just wanted to have a quick look at the data, I did a show top 10, right? And there's my first 10 rows. Now it's not ordered by anything. We could definitely put an order by in here. We could, order by any of these particular columns and then do a show top 10 because we wanted to see the top 10, which are ordered by whatever sum of profit, right? Um, so any of that is possible. Anything that is normally possible inside of SQL is typically available in Spark SQL. There is some different notation. So this limit 1,000 instead of saying select top 1,000 all, that is a change from normal Microsoft Transact SQL. But keep in mind that Spark SQL runs on multiple platforms and has just been adopted by Microsoft to do this. So anyway, that's part of that. And then let's take a quick look at the couple of reports that you get to build out of all of this. So essentially, you go in and you create your semantic model that develops your that is becomes available for your report, and the demo walks you through building this exact report. And as it's refreshing its views, I'm sure that it's in the background refreshing its semantic model because it's been more than 24 hours. But it walks you through all of these data visualizations, right? And as you build things out, so that's filters. As you build all this stuff out, and you want to be able to, um, show or not show or uh, understand uh, everything that's going on inside of the data that you have over here. You could, of course, create that stuff back out, but this is customer analysis. This is the first report that they get you to build right off of Dimension Customer. Now, while we see the rest of these tables in here now that have been added to the semantic model later, initially, this particular table is really only you're looking at customer key and buying group, and you're able to the demos walk you through developing these particular reports, right? drag them, drop them, filter them, use the particular visualizations to show this, and then you're good to go. We'll talk about the next report real quick. I don't want to save any changes to that. So the next report that we're going to talk about is the profit report, and they walk you through building the profit report and the visualizations that go along with that, right? So this particular piece here is its own visualization, 17.98 billion, right? Sum of profit, who wouldn't want all that? Sum of profit by sales territory. So, right, who's making the money and what, or who's, or where is the money being made, right? Sum of profit by fiscal month and buying package, right? So is it a carton or is it a packet? And you get to look through that by the sum of each one by month. And then of course, what a lot of people would look at is sum of profit by employee. So how much are each of my individual employees actually making me? Right. So it says here that Sylvia Hinton is actually making you $2.3 billion in profit. Wouldn't that be nice? Anyhow, that's pretty much the rundown of all the items that you get to create in the data warehouse tutorial as part of the learn.microsoft.com en-fabric, and I'll put that link to this particular tutorial in the show note, and we'll go from there. Until then, I'm Bob Mills, and I am an MIT certified data engineer, and this is a preview of some of the things that are available that you can go build inside of Fabric and have the tutorials to walk you through all of how this works. Thanks. Hope you learned something.